I ironed the dress twice, not because it needed it, but because I needed something to do with my hands. The speech card sat untouched on the desk. So did the small wrapped box beside it, forest green paper charcoal ribbon, the kind of gift wrap that doesn't beg for attention, but can't be ignored either. My name is Lauren Blake. I'm 35. I've helped land orbital relays on Mars' co-developed radiation shielding systems for long-range probes and served as the youngest director of mission engineering at Orion Dynamics. But none of that mattered tonight. Tonight, I was just the daughter of Richard Blake, the man retiring after 43 years at the helm of Midwest Aerotech. The man everyone would toast with champagne and polished anecdotes. The man who never once said, "I'm proud of my daughter" in public, maybe not even in private. I stood in my hotel room mirror rehearsal half-hearted. "Thank you for your years of service," I murmured. "And for the lessons you taught us." No, that didn't sound like me. That sounded like someone trying to keep the peace. And I wasn't sure peace was what I came for. Behind me, the box waited. Just big enough to hold one photo frame, just heavy enough to hurt. I'd packed it the night before, unsure if I'd give it to him, unsure if I'd even stay long enough to find out. What do you say to a man who taught you physics and failure in the same breath, who praised your brothers at every table but left you out of every toast? I wasn't here for revenge. I wasn't here for recognition either. I think maybe I came because I still wanted him to see me. And that's the part that hurt the most. Because deep down, even after everything, I still wanted to be seen. I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, in a red brick house where everything had its place. Shoes by the door, elbows off the table, emotions kept small. My father, Richard Blake, was the kind of man who believed in order and output. He built satellites for the military and expected his children to orbit accordingly. Ryan and Jason, my older brothers, did. Ryan enlisted in the Navy at 17. Jason played quarterback, then went into defense contracting. Their achievements fit cleanly into the stories my father liked to tell at dinner parties, stories with medals, ranks, and promotions. Stories with titles. And then there was me. I was the quiet one. I liked circuits more than dolls' telescopes, more than tiaras. While other girls at school painted their nails, I was soldering wires to breadboards in the garage, reading Carl Sagan under the covers with a flashlight. At 12, I built my first aerial drone from salvaged parts. It buzzed like a lawnmower and crashed into our maple tree, but it flew. I ran to the kitchen, beaming, breathless. My mother clapped. My father asked, "Did you copy that off YouTube?" He didn't mean it to be cruel. He just didn't know how to see a girl doing something outside his framework. That was the blueprint of our relationship, my accomplishments as anomalies, not lineage. When I got accepted to MIT on partial scholarship, he nodded like I'd said I was changing my major to art. When I graduated summa cum laude with a double degree in aerospace and applied mathematics, he sent an email. "Nice. Keep pushing. No call, no card, no mention of it at dinner the next time I came home. But still I tried. That's the thing people don't understand. When the people you love withhold love, you work harder, not less. I took the job no one expected me to get, mission systems lead at Orion Dynamics. I pulled 18-hour days, worked holidays, published papers, filed patents. By 31, I was the youngest woman to head a space vehicle architecture team. And yet, every Thanksgiving, every 4th of July, every family photo, my father would lift a glass and say, "To my boys." Carrying the Blake name forward with strength and honor. And I would smile. Tight, practiced like a woman trying not to make things worse. Even Jason, whom I once quietly helped cover grad school tuition when his business failed, mocked my work once. "Lauren's in aerospace," he told a neighbor. "She does the moon stuff." "Government science club, right?" They laughed. Not cruelly, just dismissively. Like I was a quirky footnote. Not the daughter who had cracked radiation shielding protocol for a Mars mission. And what do you do with that? When your family calls you smart, but never calls you important. When they let you in the room, but never into the story, you build. You try harder. You hope someday they'll notice what you've become. Until one day, you stop hoping. I arrived 15 minutes early. Not because I was eager, but because anxiety tricks me into overcompensating. Early is safe. Early means no entrance to perform. I handed my keys to the valet. He hesitated when he saw the black Rivian SUV. Out here, electric still meant eccentric. The Midwest Aerotech Gala was hosted at a private event space overlooking Lake Michigan. Crisp air, trimmed hedges, white linen tables set under a vaulted ceiling, glass chandeliers above, soft jazz below. Inside, a looping slideshow cycled on a 10-foot screen, my father shaking hands with generals standing next to satellites posing with other executives in decades of graying suits. Each photo was a monument to legacy. None had family. Not one showed Christmas mornings. Not one caught birthdays or school plays. Just rockets. Just Richard Blake, stoic, polished alone. A waiter passed with flutes of champagne. I took one and sipped. Not because I wanted it, but because standing empty-handed felt too exposed. Across the room, my mother caught my eye. Her wave was brief, restrained, a gesture meant for just me. She'd always loved in quiet corners, sideline hugs, packed lunches, soft glances when words were too dangerous. Well, look who made it! I turned. Ryan, square-jawed, flag-pinned lapel, smiled like a man campaigning. Behind him, Jason adjusted his cufflinks and offered a nod. Lauren Ryan said, hugging me in the way people do when cameras are nearby. Still working with NASA or whatever. Still at Orion, I replied. We're finalizing a deep space probe this quarter. Right. Jason grinned. The moon stuff. He laughed. So did Ryan. Not maliciously, just the casual dismissal of people who have never had to understand you. You should say something tonight, Ryan added. Dad might actually tear up. I smiled thinly. He doesn't do tears. They peeled off to greet a retired Air Force colonel. And just like that, I was 12 again, neatly dressed, carefully silent, standing in a room where everyone had a place and mine was adjacent. Behind me, the slideshow flickered to a new photo. My father in front of a launch schematic. No family. No daughter. When the MC finally took the mic, the lights dimmed just enough to make everyone lower their voices and raise their glasses. He began with warm laughter company milestones, a few half-funny engineering jokes that got the right kind of polite chuckles. Then with ceremonial flair, he announced, "Please welcome the man of the hour, Mr. Richard Blake." The applause was immediate, confident, reverent. My father walked up like a man who had never once questioned his own footing. He adjusted the mic, smiled for the camera, and began in the voice I knew too well. Measured, deep, practiced. 43 years, he said, scanning the crowd. I walked into Midwest Aerotech as a junior systems analyst in '81. I leave today as CEO. That journey, well, I didn't walk it alone. I leaned slightly forward. I don't know why. I just did. I had partners, mentors, friends. But most of all, I had family. Another polite round of applause. My sons, Ryan and Jason, have carried the Blake name with strength. Ryan's time in the Navy taught us all about honor. Jason's work on our propulsion teams kept us competitive in the field. He paused to gesture to them. The spotlight turned briefly toward their table. They waved modestly. I could see our uncle clapping our cousin snapping a photo. Everything I built, everything this company became has their fingerprints on it. The applause swelled again. People stood. I didn't. He waited for silence, then softened his tone. That always meant a pivot. Not every child is wired the same, and that's okay. Some paths don't follow tradition. Some talents don't translate into legacy, but every family has their own blueprint, right? It was gentle, it was vague, and it landed like a punch to the throat. He hadn't said my name. He hadn't needed to. People chuckled. Just a little. One of his colleagues looked at me briefly, then looked away. I felt the blood leave my hands. My grip on the champagne glass was steady, but not because I wasn't shaking, because I'd had years to practice stillness. My mother looked at me from across the room. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. And I stood. Not fast, not dramatically, just deliberately. I walked toward the stage, but not onto it. I stopped 3 steps away. The room quieted. I held out the small green box, both hands calm. "From your biggest disappointment," I said. My voice didn't waver, not once. I handed him the box, turned, and walked out. Not rushed, not angry, just done. The marble floors caught the sound of my heels. The applause resumed behind me as if I hadn't happened. I didn't drive straight back to the hotel. Instead, I parked at the far end of the event garage in one of those shadowy corners no one ever uses unless they're hiding or hurting. I turned off the engine but didn't move. For a while, I just sat there, hands still on the wheel, breathing slow. Not panicked, just quiet. It felt like standing in a snowstorm you saw coming for years and only now decided to stop pretending it wasn't real. My phone buzzed. Once, then again, a text from Mom, another from an old college roommate who must have seen the video. Then Jason. What was in that box? I didn't answer, because I already knew what was happening back in that ballroom, knew how long it would take before the curiosity got to him. My father wouldn't open it in front of a crowd. He was too composed for that. But 10 minutes, maybe less. He hated not knowing, hated surprises more than weakness. Inside the box nestled in black velvet lining was a single framed photo. I had kept it in the back of my closet for over 20 years, folded in cardboard wrapped in old tissue paper. I'd nearly thrown it away a dozen times. It was taken in the spring of 1999. A local robotics fair at Evanston Middle School. I had built a functional rover prototype using lawnmower parts and salvaged electronics. Took first place district-wide. My mother had begged him to come. He did late arms-crossed phone clipped to his belt like always. But something shifted that day. Maybe it was the way the judges asked questions or how the prototype moved across the test terrain. Maybe for 5 minutes he forgot I wasn't Ryan or Jason. Someone had snapped the photo at just the right moment, me holding the blue ribbon, him with his hand on my shoulder, smiling, a real smile. Beneath the frame, I'd tucked a note in my own handwriting. This was the last time you looked at me like I mattered. I spent 23 years chasing that version of you. I'm done now. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a demand. It was a mirror. And whether he looked into it or not, that was on him. But he couldn't say it never happened. It was almost 11 p.m. when my phone buzzed again. This time the message was from him. Come by. Alone. No preamble. No explanation. Just 5 syllables that felt like a command, but also something else. A summons, a crack in the wall. I didn't decide right away. I stared at the text until the screen went dark again. Then I got in the car. The house looked exactly the same. Brick facade, perfect hedges, porch light still on like it had been every night of my childhood, as if constancy could replace affection. I let myself in. The door was unlocked. He was in the den, sitting in his leather armchair, the one we were never allowed to touch as kids. The box was open on the coffee table in front of him. The photo stood upright. He hadn't moved it. He didn't look up when I entered. For a full minute we said nothing. Then finally, without shifting his eyes from the frame, he said, I don't remember that day. I stood across from him, arms crossed. Not defensive, just cold. Of course you don't, I said. It wasn't important to you. That landed, not like a slap, but like a stone dropped into still water. The ripple was subtle, but it reached him. He cleared his throat. You think I didn't care? I don't think I replied. I know. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on knees. For a man who had commanded rooms full of military engineers, he suddenly looked unsure. I pushed you, he said slowly, because I saw something in you. Something sharp, unrelenting. No, I cut in. You pushed me away. There's a difference. He finally looked up. You weren't like the boys. You didn't need approval. You didn't wait for permission. You challenged everything. So that made me less deserving. He hesitated. The silence between us thickened. Then he said something I hadn't expected. You reminded me of my father. That stopped me. He hated how I questioned things, thought emotions were weakness, said the only thing worse than a soft son was a difficult daughter. I guess I carried that. There it was. Not an apology, just lineage. A toxic inheritance passed down like a monogrammed suitcase no one asked for. I sat down, but not close. Just at the edge of the couch. My voice came out low. So I spent my life being punished for a version of you that existed before I was even born. He blinked. Didn't deny it. You were never a failure, he said. I just didn't know how to raise a daughter like you. You didn't try, I answered. You just ignored me until I gave up trying to be seen. There was another long silence. Finally, he picked up the photo, studied it again. I don't remember smiling like that. I do, I said. It kept me going for years. That's a lot of pressure for one moment. Then maybe you should have made more of them. He looked at me again. Not past me. Not through me. At me. This what you did tonight, he said. It made me angry. Good, I replied. You felt something. We both sat there, in a room filled with the ghosts of everything we'd never said. And I realized this was as close to an apology as I would ever get. Not because he didn't want to say the right words, but because he had never learned how. And suddenly, I didn't need him to. 2 weeks passed, not with dramatic closure or sudden clarity, just with space. The kind that lets old air out of rooms you didn't realize you'd been holding your breath in. I went back to Chicago, back to spreadsheets, orbital risk logs, 6 a.m. Briefs. No one at Orion asked what happened. They didn't have to. They saw it online. A few clips from the gala had circulated just enough to catch the moment I handed him the box. The audio cut out, but the image lingered. I looked composed, almost serene. But if you watched closely, you could see it a woman who wasn't walking away from family just from pretending it wasn't broken. Then came the invitation. We'd love for you to give the closing keynote at this year's Women in Engineering Summit, the email read. You'd be the first female mission director from Orion to take that stage. I almost declined. But then I remembered a girl I once was the one soldering circuits in the garage while her father watched sports with her brothers. She would have wanted me to say yes. So I did. I stood under white lights in a crowded ballroom in D.C., a different one this time, facing rows of young women in STEM, some in lab coats, some in headscarves, some in borrowed blazers with bitten fingernails and tired eyes. And I told them the truth. Sometimes rockets don't fail because of heat or fuel or math. Sometimes they fail in silence when no one sees them lift. I spent years trying to become the kind of daughter someone like my father could be proud of. But the real shift came when I stopped performing and started owning. I paused. Let it settle. You don't have to prove yourself to people who refuse to see you. Some legacies are worth breaking, and sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is simply walk away, not in anger, but in clarity. The applause didn't matter, but the stillness after did. In that moment, I wasn't someone's daughter. I wasn't someone's disappointment. I was my own damn architect. A month later, the envelope arrived. No return address. The handwriting on the front was sharp, angular, familiar. Inside was the same photo, the one I had given him. On the back, in block letters, he'd written, I didn't forget that day. I tried to. Because it scared me how much I loved that version of you. You deserved more than I gave. I'm sorry. No signature. No, love, Dad. Just that. I stared at it for a long time, not crying, just still. Then I folded the photo, placed it gently in the same drawer where I used to keep every disappointing birthday card, every half-hearted holiday note. But this time, it didn't go there as another wound. It went there as a marker of something that had finally stopped bleeding. Because sometimes the apology doesn't come in time. Sometimes it doesn't come in words you waited decades for. Sometimes it doesn't come until you've already stopped needing it. And that's what healing looks like. It's not loud. It's not cinematic. It's a Tuesday morning when you drink your coffee and don't think of him. It's a voicemail you don't feel obligated to return. It's choosing silence and realizing it doesn't mean defeat. It means peace. 3 months after the gala, I spoke at a small university near Evanston, a mentorship panel, Girls in Engineering. Afterward, a student no older than 19 approached me. Big glasses, shy voice. How did you know, she asked, when it was time to stop trying to win your dad's approval? I smiled, not out of bitterness, but from a place she hadn't arrived at yet. I didn't, I said. I just woke up one day and realized I already had mine. That night, back in my apartment, I opened a new frame, slipped the photo inside, hung it on the wall, not as a plea for recognition, but as proof of everything I survived without it. If you've ever kept a photo they forgot just to prove to yourself it was real, you're not alone.